Asked ex-fiance to move out because of fighting and kids suffer. Want to try and work things out. My ex-fiance and I were together 4 years. She moved into my house after about a year. We have a 3-year-old daughter together and I have 2 other children to a previous marriage, shared custody week on week off. I am 30 and ex is 35. I was the only one working so she could be a stay-at-home mom, and she doesn't drive. Trying to support a family on one income is rough, doesn't make a lot of date nights for sure. My brother did get her a job, a restaurant a few blocks from home. There was an argument and she went to her sister's and just didn't go to work, didn't try to explain herself to employer to keep job or anything. That was a bummer. However, we kept chugging along, things seemed to be okay, we were still making ends meet, and the kids never had to go without. Kids, for sure we were a kick family and parents. We both agree on that. However, communicating with her was rough for the last 6 months or so. She was a screamer and pusher. I was not a fan at all of that. The kids would be there crying, covering their ears. I would point at them and say, "Stop, can't you see them crying?" So I would walk away or even sometimes leave the house. She claimed that was my MO and I would run away when things got hard. I was merely walking away because that is counterproductive. Now I am also guilty of yelling before. As soon as she would start yelling and pointing fingers, I would fall into it too. That's why I just started walking away. Sometimes when we cooled down we could talk about things. But the last 6 months were kind of bad. Work was very stressful and the company was looking like it was going to get bought out. My job was not as safe. I can honestly say I wasn't the most sensitive during this period, and my head was in the clouds some. She had me get on meds. And then I decided to not take them anymore. Not a good idea. Then the last 3 months she wasn't intimate anymore, just kind of stayed up all night online, friend a guy on Facebook and started talking about him quite a bit. I wasn't super happy about that. We were having problems. I confronted her, she said nothing to be concerned about. Okay, fine. The breakup. So it feels like eggshells at home. It wasn't awful. She would still make sure dinner was done, and even make me a drink after work. However, there wasn't a lot of affection, and we were both stressed. I can only imagine not being a driver and being at home with kids all winter, and not a lot of money for things. But the arguing continued, a lot of pointing fingers, and screaming. She was yelling at me and pushed me down, right in front of and toward our daughter. Other 2 were not there. My daughter screamed and cried. I said, "That's enough. You need to go stay at your sister's until we can figure this out." She agreed the kids were being affected by the fights. She asked her sister and her sister said she couldn't. That's a different story. She had kicked her out of her house in the past. So she looked into housing in town. She was able to get into an apartment fairly quick, about a month or so. Meanwhile, we are still doing the normal routine at home, sleeping in different rooms of course. So after she moves out. So about 1 week later I went to her apartment and apologized for having her move away from our home. And I asked her to go to counseling to maybe mend things. She was slightly resistant at first, and then would text and email me. "Good morning, love, I miss you guys," and I would stop by here and there to drop things off for our daughter or her, since she couldn't drive and didn't have a lot of money. And one day things seemed to be okay, and I was to stop by there and drop some things off. I said, "Okay, maybe I will grab a kiss today." Reply, "Let's not complicate things, huh?" Turned out that "you have nothing to be concerned" guy had asked her out. This was within 2 weeks. I was pretty hurt and confused. About a week or 2 later I talked to her a little bit about it. She pointed a lot of fingers and said we have no chemistry. She isn't in love with me. And she doesn't think a counselor would help. Well, I am not one to give up on family so easy, so I continued to try and talk to her about things. She said this guy was a mere friendship and she is going to think about trying to work things out, and still has a strong love for me. She was still angry about the moving out and that was my fault. I do know that, and I apologized from the bottom of my heart. So I waited some time and talked again, just about the same results. She was still hanging out with this guy and they talk on a regular basis, and she doesn't know how she feels about him. She thinks she just likes all the attention he gives her. Well, I did not deal with that well, so I tried not to talk to her and she would send me messages. "I don't like the feeling of you hating me." Things seem to be going much better there now that I'm not there, yet she still isn't interested in yet fixing things. It's been a little over 2 months now and she has come honest with me that she is fond of this guy and is torn between working things out and trying new. Help!